Morning, everybody, and welcome to the Finance and Operation Committee of the Whole. Our mandate is to discuss and make recommendations to the board on financial, facilities, maintenance, technology, and transportation matters with a view of environmental sustainability. We would like to give thanks and acknowledge that the lands on which we work and learn are on the shared territories of the Qualicum and the Sinawas First Peoples. And as we start through the agenda, there is no presentations, and we can jump right into project updates, which was the opening of the Oceanside Community Track. And I believe Phil and Rudy are going to. Phil.
Before you do that, I would also like to hear from Mr. Monroe on the bus schedule updates, because in my neighborhood, we're still getting kids to school late. So I'm hoping that you'll give us an update on that, Phil.
Yep, no problem. I can do that.
Do you want to put that down in the information?
Sure. I will put that down there, bus schedules. So you can go ahead. Director of Operations, Phil Monroe.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and nice to be back here in this forum for the start of the school year. The track opened, had its opening ceremony there. Many of you were there, which was last Friday, the 12th. Long awaited for many of the people in the community. And the project that kicked off last year in May, when soil began to turn, concluded with the opening ceremony. So 15 months from start to finish when the project first started. I am just going to share my screen here quickly for those people that weren't able to attend, so that they could at least get a flavor of what it looked like there on the day. So just to button up this project, as I mentioned there at the opening ceremony, we had $1.6 million thereabouts in funding for the project. And through the inspiring efforts of the community, we were able to deliver a really good premium product there for the budgeted amount. And then the school district used the services of the civil contractor that was there, Leighton Contracting, and we paid an additional $300,000 to get the football field and the playing surface leveled at the same time. So 15 months project, and on budget and opened, and I think everyone would agree that it looks really good. And a couple of the points I would just mention is once the track concluded, we put up some fencing at either end of the track to try and protect the asset. And we've got these little chicanes that pedestrians would walk through to get out to the track. But we also have, as a feature of the track, a wheelchair accessibility ramp at the eastern end of the track, which is the high school side where the building is at Ballina Secondary. And that's quite wide. And so we really need some community policing there to make sure that e-bikes and motorcycles aren't going up there on the track, because we are noticing this is a bit of a, maybe it's just a novelty and it will wear off, but we really don't want them out there damaging the running surface. Equally, what I would say is that first and foremost, during school hours, it's a school track. And it is a novelty for everyone right now, and everyone's out there. But I noticed lots of people out there this morning when I was there, members of the public walking the track. And during school hours, it's still a school facility. And then public use outside of those school hours after 3:12 every day or before 8:50. I'll pause there and stop sharing my screen and take any questions if anyone's got any.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. Actually, I was at the opening and it was wonderful. It was very exciting for some of the kids that were standing around us. It was great, really well done. But I was wondering about that area that the ramp is, if there is a possibility of putting some cameras in there at some point. Maybe the municipality would be willing to do it. I know we have cameras here, or even on a temporary basis, if one of the security companies put a camera in, so that if somebody is on there, there could be signage saying there's cameras here, and if you damage the thing, we got you.
Yeah, it's a good point. Now that we've got some fencing up, we'll be putting signage, and there's a balance between too much signage and not enough signage, and so we need to get the balance right, because coming from an airport world where it's littered with signage, people stop reading the signage when there's too much, and so we need to make sure that we have the right amount of signage. But some of that signage is going to be keeping dogs off sports fields. No motorized access up there except for mobility scooters and those sorts of things. But no golfing and all that kind of stuff. And yes, you're right. That there'll be some. You're on camera. You're on.
Peter, did you hear that? No golfing.
There's golfers out there. You'd be surprised how many times we've had to kick golfers off of there. So we've got some CCTV cameras that are new additions to the school district on the back of Winchelsea, and that protects that side. The ones that are existing on the back of Bolinas are old and antiquated and are good during the day, but are a little grainy in the evening. And so we're going to start to upgrade those over time, which don't have it. But absolutely, we'll get some CCTV signage there. And then working with the city as well about potential bylaw enforcement there from the city, considering the city has contributed so much money to this track.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Trustee Austin.
Thanks, Phil. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there on Friday, but it does look great. I've been looking at photos. So I just have two questions. One is that seeded grass in the center of the oval. It's coming up. It looks great actually already, but when will it be ready for the football?
Yep, it's a great question. And so we've got, as you can see you could see in the photos, there's some snow fencing around that to give this field the best opportunity to sustain the playing and the sort of abuse it's going to take. Is we're looking for 3/4 of an inch of thatch underneath, and we're taking this guidance from a local gentleman, Ross Rivers, who looks after the city's fields, and we're at about 1/2 inch. And so we're looking to open the field up around March at the start of spring, and then we'd have a really good base where this field would hold up to all the types of sports that's going to get played on it. So March.
Terrific. No, that's great. And my next question was, I'm just wondering if it would be worth somebody, Peter or Rudy or somebody or yourself, writing a quick blurb to the newspaper, either as a letter or perhaps as a little insert that they can do in the paper, reminding people that we're all excited about the community track. It is great, but reminding them that it is for school use during school hours, and also perhaps reminding them that please, it's not for bicycles and all of that other thing. It's just one of those things. This is the kind of thing that our new communications group will be working on.
Yeah,
I'm sure. But until we're up and running, maybe that's something we can do just as another avenue to get it out to the community.
Great point.
Yeah. And even the community policing in the newspaper, that could possibly be very helpful. Trustee Young.
Yeah, so first of all, I don't think we should approach the municipality for cameras. This has been kind of a difficult process, and my experience, and perhaps Mr. Terpstra is not here, but he might have a different point of view on this. I was told by the municipality, by Parksville, if you ask for another red cent, we're going to claw back what we've given. So I don't think we should be approaching them for anything more at this point. So for me, it was quite a journey, and I was, as you guys know, I was quite involved in lobbying and all sorts of stuff. So I want to thank Phil in particular, and Rudy in his absence. You guys are awesome. We wouldn't have this track, Phil, without you. I'm convinced of that. I'm convinced that you moved it forward. The newspaper was there. They were very active, took a lot of pictures. I want to thank Phil and Rudy for acknowledging my work on this, as well as many, many other people. The other thing is that the original plan for the track was that during school hours, if the track was not in use, that people could use it. So that's shifted a bit, and I would still like to suggest that we see how that goes with the community. I've seen other tracks where this has worked really well, so just a couple of points for your consideration.
Hey, I appreciate that. I didn't know that that was something that was prearranged. So I'll take it offline, chat to the senior leadership team in one of our weekly catch-ups and my colleagues, and we'll sort of come back to that point.
There's
Thank
also,
you.
and just a note, I mean, we'd also want to probably include the school on that kind of wonder. I mean, they will be monitoring. I mean, if it becomes a pain, obviously with the public, then obviously they're the first ones that will know that. So definitely we'll include the school in that conversation also.
Great. Thank you very much. Trustee Kurland.
Yep. So, you know, not having a sign up that says that there's video recording might be a good idea, even if there isn't, you know, for deterring things. I know that, you know, most of the schools now have that in the school, and probably having something at the track there would be good. And the other thing is there any instructions or provisions in case sharp implements are found out there in the environment? Because it probably will happen, given Parksville's reputation and demographics.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, and I'll take it away. But I would treat it as we do with the playgrounds, where we do visual inspections periodically around playgrounds, and some of the other districts in more urban centres actually do needle walks every morning around school perimeters and those sorts of things. Right. And so we've got, you know, obviously there's a bit of additional maintenance with the track, you know, with power washing and blowing and all those things to keep it in good working order. And so we would take that offline and factor it into some of our preventative maintenance.
Yep. Thanks, Phil.
Excellent. Thank you very much. QP Vice President Tom Slocum.
Yeah, thanks, Carla. I was in my truck this morning and I heard on the radio about our new track and that the community can reserve it through the RDN. So I'm looking at finding out what the relationship to this track and the RDN is, and if they're taking reservations for it, are they going to be looking for monies or that, I guess, yeah, that type of thing. So again, what's the relationship to the RDN?
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep. No problem. All of our fields, so Mike, the manager of operations, Mike Suchak, and myself go to field user group meetings every 6 months for the Oceanside community. They're held in the evening, and the town of Qualicum is a field owners there, City of Parksville's there, and the school district, either Mike or myself. And we update all the user groups in the community. Also at that meeting is the president for soccer and football and track and field and lacrosse and all the user groups. We update about maintenance that's going on, but also the RDN is the central holder for all the fields in the Oceanside community to book them for the user groups. And so the way that it works for the track, for example, is I've told the RDN, okay, when you book the track, obviously the school gets first priority for their programs. Then it's equally the Oceanside track community and the football whalers. Once they've booked up their use, then it's open slather to everyone else in the community. And so, because it's the only place football can play and it's the only running track we have in the community. And so RDN take bookings for all of our fields in the community, as they do for the city and the town. They're the central gatekeeper for field use bookings. So that's how the relationship. There's no monetary exchange. It's a community-led thing. It's a community program and partners. And one of the reasons why we're trying to help the community with one of the things we're working on, just without going too far into it, is to try and get some of the user groups, because there's a lack of sports fields in the community, to contribute additional funds, and then that will help raise the bar. Like soccer doesn't have enough fields. So we've said to soccer, if you can help contribute to some of the fertilization and additional overseeding at Arrowview, you can use Arrowview exclusively like the Whalers do at the high schools. And so we're working through some of those relationships with the user groups at the moment to try and help get. We've got fields with it. We just need some additional help from them to help raise the bar on the level of. They can't have potholes and those sorts of things on their soccer fields. So.
Great question. President Matt Wood.
Oh, thank you, Carol. Hey, I just want a couple things. Ron, thanks for pointing out that it's really important to work with Bolinas. They're the biggest, probably, daily user. So to have those conversations as we move forward would be fantastic. So thanks for mentioning that. I just wanted to point out that I went to the track yesterday for the first time. I had a walk around. Fabulous, beautiful. Just so proud to have that as part of our community. The funny thing about policing is there were some young kids there, young people, and they seemed fine and things were all good. Then suddenly, a motorized scooter went whipping by. So I made mention that it's not for that track. Got the high five that you get from someone moving along. Anyways, it's just the difficulties of policing. So I have heard lots of policing, and I'm totally going to be about it because it's right in my back door. But there I go. I was policing it, and that's, I can handle that sort of stuff, but other people may not. So there is some concern when you say community policing. I don't know how you stop it other than just being on top of it as much as you can. But I just wanted to share that story because it was a fresh one that occurred last night. But the place looks fantastic. It was awesome to walk around that track. Thanks for all folks that were part of that, putting that together. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I'll just one thing with that. I think the way to go about this is multifaceted. I think it is the cameras. I think it is signage. I think it is community policing. But I think more importantly, and this is what I chatted to Mayor O'Brien about after the opening ceremony, is if we got bylaws officers go there and just issue a couple of tickets early days, I think it would just set the scene that this is a community asset we're trying to protect. He's taking that away, but that would be a really good deterrent early stages to say that we're serious about this. So more to come on that.
Great. Thank you very much. And I see no more hands. Thank you, Phil. Information items. 2024 year-end financial summary and Secretary Treasurer Ron Amos.
Right. So I'll introduce this one, and then along with the financial statements, the ministry is asking for the FSDN, which is included, the financial statement discussion and analysis, and Ryan will walk you through that. But again, just from the top level, I've included a summary of where the financials ended for the year. In terms of process, the board will have a meeting next week with the auditors. They will be presented with the financial statements at that time in an in-camera meeting. That way the board can have confidential conversation prior to the public meeting at 6 o'clock. So the board will hear it from the auditors at that point. This is really just meant as a condensed summary for public consumption, as it were, recognizing that it isn't meant to necessarily include or report all the schedules that the financial statements are made up of, the schedules and corresponding statements, but it is just sort of a communication out of how we ended, recognizing that next week it'll be made public. So really, I'm just reporting out on the revenues and the expenditures in the operating fund. And so these line items are similar to what you will have seen in our quarterly reporting, as well as the budget, as well as the financial statements themselves. We report, obviously, the revenues broken down by provincial grants and other revenues. And again, I'm only showing one line. The financial statements will show you the details once they're presented. And likewise, the expenditures, I'm showing the details of the salaries and benefits, but I've summarized the supplies and services, which includes supplies and services, homestay costs, utilities, insurance costs, and that kind of nature. But again, really, this is just about sort of a macro level of where the operating fund finished. So going back, and I'm showing you sort of how the amended budget was presented back in February of each year. So in February 2024, the amended budget was presented against the 23-24 year. And then you're showing the actual as of June 30th, September 24. And then likewise, the next column is the 24-25 year. Same information, the amended budget, where we finished, and then differences to amended. And so just coming down at the revenue side, you can see against last year's, between the amended budget and the end of the year, we received about $135,000 in additional revenues through provincial grants. Same thing applied this year, and I'm just sort of isolating a couple of areas where the grants came in. The Integrated Child and Youth Care Worker Program had some grants that came in late in the year this year, as well as child care revenues that are dependent on the subsidies when we apply for subsidies on behalf of parents. And so that's coming through the ministry grant section. And so you're seeing that there's about an additional $135,000 received after the budget was cast. On the opposite side of that is the other revenues. And again, this generally includes other provincial grants. It includes our rental income. It includes our investment income. It includes our transportation and childcare that we're collecting from fee payers and that kind of nature, as well as one-off donations that come through these accounts. So again, last year you're seeing after budget, we didn't really receive anything beyond what we cast in the budget, so it came in $8,800 less. This year it came in at $117,000 less. I'm starting with these lines because what I'm trying to point out is that in past years prior to this, some of the misses in budget that are occurring down on the expenditure side is because additional grants are coming after the budgets are cast and are covering off some of those additional expenditures. And so in past years, the disparities between budget and actual were managed by those additional revenues post-budget. This year, you're not seeing it again. So this is us as we come to terms with kind of our new realities of our financial situation. We've got somewhat of a declining enrollment. We've got somewhat of a declining or no new revenues coming from the ministry in terms of the economic issues and the headwinds that they're going through. So again, we needing to reinforce that we're in a year of transition, of righting the ship. And again, some of that was felt through the budget process, the difficult decisions that were made leading up till the 24-25 year, 25-26 year, is because of some of these tailwinds that you're seeing in 24-25. So expenditures, you're seeing teachers pretty much on target for budget. Principals, additional costs due to principal leaves, medical leaves and long-term leaves that weren't necessarily budgeted but impacted the year end. Educational assistance and support staff were greater than anticipated, to the tune of, between the two of them, about $450,000. Other professionals pretty much on target. Substitutes, and this is the area that we kind of did some work on throughout the year in terms of our replacement costs. We've been kind of monitoring our replacement costs, indicating that they're going higher and higher and higher because of various rationale and various reasons. And so we tried to get the system to support the wonders of how can we replace. Do we have to replace with every sick, or do we have to replace every medical leave? And I think what you're seeing within that 300,000 savings is some effects of that change. Some of that, and again, we're trying to still understand that's if that savings is in part because of additional costs in educational assistance and support staff. So we're just making sure that we are crediting the savings against replacement costs, or is it because of the overspends in these other areas? Yet to be seen, but again, at the end of the day, the salaries and benefit costs were about $300,000 overspent. Supplies and services, on the other hand, was pretty much on budget. As a result, total expenditures in total is about 327 over budget. 200 of that was planned. So 200 again in terms of use of surplus. We built the budget on using $200,000 worth of appropriated surplus. And again, the conversation around that was we had transportation software that we implemented. The second year of it was implemented this year, as well as Indigenous education have targeted funds that have to be spent in the year. And when they don't spend it all, it gets carried forward as an appropriated surplus. And so $200,000 was used from appropriated surplus to balance the budget. So that was intended. We ended up finishing at $500,000 overspent, which means we overspent, or we overspent in terms of being unplanned of about 300,000. And so how I'm kind of showing that on the bottom part is we plan to spend 200, 310 was additional costs. And so there's been some conversations post budget, or after the budget was cast, some decisions were made just because of mitigating circumstances. And one of those decisions was cybersecurity. So we made the intention, even though it wasn't in the amended budget, we had an intention to buy 1.5 year of cybersecurity, knowing that we would balance it with the new budget going into 25-26. So part of the overspend was because of these intended spends. And then about $200,000, I'm kind of saying, is the differences to budgets. And again, some of that is benefits overspend, some of it is savings in supply in utilities, for example. But it aggregates up to about a $200,000 difference to budgets for a net reduction in our surplus of about 505. And how that translates into the financial statement presentation is of that $700,000 that's appropriated, that is in our surplus account, $70,000 is attributed to the Indigenous education, and that'll be brought forward at the regular board meeting next week. And then about $631,000 that we've got for future years uses, or appropriated for future years. So that's where we finished. Again, it wasn't the best finish that we wanted, but we knew that going into last year with some of those student enrollment and special needs enrollment being taken in September to other programs outside of the public school, we knew that we had a difficult year ahead. And I think for the most part, we knew that we weren't going to get away unscathed. But again, luckily we had the surpluses currently to be able to soften the blow, so that this is where we're ending now. Like I said, we're kind of at knowing what we had to do last year going into the 25-26. This was why, because we knew that last year was going to be a difficult year, but certainly we're starting to right the ship for 25-26.
Thank you.
That's it.
Trustee Austin.
Thanks for that, Ron. I think, I'm sorry, I think I'm just struggling a little bit with formatting, and perhaps it's the way my brain works. But when I see red and parentheses, I think, okay, that's a loss. So from my perspective, under revenue, I can see that we expected, almost 5.5, in projected revenue. We didn't quite hit that target at 5.3. So, we had a loss of anticipated of revenue of 117,000. I think where I'm kind of getting a little confused is once we get down to expenditures, again, I'm thinking, well, these should be losses, and yet everything that's in red seems to be where we actually didn't have those expenditures that we anticipated. So it's confusing me a little bit because I don't think of those as losses. Those are actually, that was great. We didn't spend, as much on other professionals. We didn't spend as much on substitutes, that kind of thing. And so it confuses me when I see it in red and brackets because it doesn't seem like a loss to me.
Agreed. I know I've had this people, and I've struggled the same thing in terms of how to report it. In a normal world, what you would end up doing is putting your grants as negatives, so that a negative minus a negative kind of thing for the formulas to be accurate. You would have to reverse the revenues. I'll take it again. If there's a better way for me to present it, regardless of my own need to report it right, but if there's a better presentation for the public, absolutely, maybe that will be the easiest way of doing it, is showing the revenues negatives being a bad thing and positives being a good thing in the expenditure side, I guess is, and I'll take what your comments are and do my best to present it for the public so that it makes more sense.
Okay.
Coming from that mindset, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The supply side and the demand side, right?
Thank you. Trustee Young.
There's an old accountant joke about double entry bookkeeping, and that's basically what we're looking at here. So it's the way that financial statements are presented. And but I just wanted to thank Mr. Amos and Mr. Hung for this work. I think this is a very, very important document for all of our partners. And I see that Jason has joined us. Hi, Jason. To present to their membership, because if we continue down this road, we will be bankrupt pretty quickly. And so there has to be, and I know that Superintendent Drury might disagree with me, but the province and the federal government have to realize that education is important and needs to be, and public education needs to be supported. So that's my little rant, but this is particularly the narrative. I think people can understand it very easily. And so I'm hoping that all of our partner groups will share this with their membership, and that we can all be on the same page about what is needed and what our ask is from the higher levels of government. That's enough of my rant.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Madam President, Matt Wood.
Well, thank you, Carol. And thanks for that clarification. I guess I was looking at the red, being a little bit confused myself, but I'm going to make a comment, and people may agree with this or not agree with it, but it seems to me that a huge thank you should go out to teachers and to substitutes, because we've really done a big savings here for the district in terms of not being having positions replaced. I'm not sure where the savings came in terms of the teacher salaries, but there seems to be some pretty big expenditures in some other departments. And so just want to say that I will be letting my members know that they have helped the district out by taking on the extra workload when people aren't replaced, because that's what I heard Rhona talked about, that there was some savings in replacements. I would think that, I would hope too, there was some savings. Possibly we were lucky to not have any sort of extreme sicknesses come through. And, and keeping our buildings clean is always very important as well. So I agree. The funding needs to come in, but if I'm incorrect in saying this, someone please let me know. But I will be letting teachers know that they've done it. They've saved upwards of $300,000 for the district. So thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, clearly we're not out of the woods. Clearly this is, and I'm speaking to the substitute cost line. Absolutely. I think there were some gains. This is certainly that systematic approach to it. Certainly the superintendent has asked individual or asked groups to be mindful of the replacement costs, and I think we've made gains. Oftentimes I say the gains are great once. Let's see if we can carry on those gains. And I guess that's the going forward analysis of, is this a trend or is it one time? And again, I appreciate the work of all our staff that have heard the messaging and are doing their best to obviously mitigate this cost.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt and Ron. Superintendent Dr. Jory.
Yeah, just speaking to that, remember we're on a several-year trend of higher and higher replacement costs every year. So it's nice to see a softening in that trend. It's not nearly a return to what costs were years before. We've had many conversations. We know that that's not going to happen. And we're not even sure that it should happen, noting that people, maybe should be away more than we believe they should in the past. But it's nice to see that these mushrooming costs are at least starting to taper, if not go in the right direction. And we appreciate everybody's work on that. Certainly, it's been top of mind for multiple years now. It's nice to see at least some relief in the system. Back to Trustee Young's comment. I really want to be clear here. I've always been a massive supporter of the education system and believe it is absolutely critical for the success of a healthy democracy. And it would never say no to more funding. What I am opposed to is only going back to government and saying, we need more money, we need more money, we need more money, when they have an $11.5 billion annual deficit, knowing that we still have work to do on the ground here to be more efficient, and that we should be focusing on that before we put our hand out once again, given the fiscal circumstances of the province and the country. So let's be clear about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jory. Trustee Kurland.
So I just, maybe Trustee Young could illuminate what you meant by this road when you said when we go down this road, we're going to be bankrupt. And I'm just curious what you meant by, if you could tell me a little bit more about that statement.
If you take a look at the kinds of draws that we've had on our accumulated surplus, and you look at the size of the accumulated surplus, if we continue to draw down in the way that we have been, we got about 2 years. That's it.
Okay.
And then we have no more surplus. Now, some of that is already tagged for different things. So, and to Dr. Jory's point, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that both is necessary. And also, I just want to echo what President of Matt said. I meant to say that, and I know that this puts pressure on our system too. If you're not replaced, I mean, I wasn't replaced as a counselor for the first 3 days, and it puts more pressure and stress on the system. So we've got a lot of work to do, and some of it is internal and some of it I believe is external, and we just have to continue to plow on. But the more that we can be together as partners and give the same message, I think the more power we'll have.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that people are getting mixed messages, which is that, oh, if you're not feeling well, stay home. And then the other part of it is that, you feel like you have a duty to get in there, even if you are feeling a little bit cranky, to do your part, So it's a toss-up when you're in there.
Right. I just want to chime in on this as well. I think when people are not replaced. The people that pick up the slack are doing a great service to the school district. And I just want to say thank you to any staff members that end up picking up where there's a deficit. It's really important, and it is truly appreciated that we're all working together towards something like this. Okay, moving on. It's Secretary Treasurer Amos, and it's financial statement discussions and analysis. The FSDA. You touched on that?
No. Ryan's going to speak to it. Right. Just to let folks hear a different voice, and then he'll lead into obviously the childcare when you're ready.
Great. Thank you very much. Assistant Secretary Treasurer Ryan Hung. You're on.
Great. Mic check. Hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So this is the financial statement discussion and analysis. This is a document that you would typically read alongside the financial statements. It basically lends itself to providing a bit more narrative to the numbers that you see on the financial statements and tells a bit more of a detailed story. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because it is a 9-page document, but I'll just walk through it very quickly on a high level. So on the first page of the document, we basically have an overview of the school district, who we are, what our strategic plan looks like, and basically some of the numbers, how many students we have, how many schools we have, that sort of thing. So flipping over the page, we see a table here identifying and basically defining the 3 different types of funds that we utilize from our accounting structure. So there's the operating fund is the one that typically most people focus on. That's the one that we our budget is built against in terms of balancing the budget. But then we also have a special purpose fund. There's a number of different grants that come in throughout the year that are targeted for different purposes, and hence it's a special purpose fund. In this area, you would find things like the annual facilities grant, the learning improvement fund, community link, ready, set, learn, those kinds of things, along with like feeding futures and so on. The capital fund is where our district receives funding for all of our capital needs, all of our larger projects, such as we know, the Fall Space School, any of the work that we do on our buildings, playgrounds, bus purchases, and that sort of thing. Below the chart, we have our financial highlights. This is the highlights from the 24-25 year. I won't go into a lot of detail here because Ron just gave a detailed description of how we ended the year. But there is some exhibits here, some charts just showing how our accumulated operating surplus has moved up and down over the years, but most recently on a downward trend. So we'll flip over to page 4. And we've also got a chart here that shows our enrollment pattern over this past several years as well. As we see in 13-14, it was at 4,195. Then we saw the dip as we closed some schools, and it gradually moved its way back up, and we're relatively flat over the past 4 or 5 years here. Below that, we have our capital investments, and this is basically our spend on capital projects in the 24-25 year. It also provides a completion date, an expected completion date for the various projects that are in progress at the moment. At the very bottom of page 4, we enter the section just talking about some significant events that may have an impact on our financial statements. Global events, as we know, the tariff situation, the political turmoil that's putting pressure on supply chains and inflationary effects, that sort of thing. Our ISP program, how we are basically experiencing some volatility globally as well because of, tail end of the pandemic, but also what's happening around the world. And locally, we also have our homestay limitations that are fluctuating up and down as well. So just some uncertainty with the ISP program. As well, we just talked a little bit about the school capacity constraints there. You can have a read of that one as well. Below that, we have the financial analysis of the school district, and this basically is a summarization of the various statements that we have on the financial statements and a description of the variances and why there are differences year over year. So there's a statement of financial position, which some of us know better as a balance sheet. The statement of operations by fund, that is basically our income statement. Turning over, and we've got our operating fund. So again, our operating fund revenues, operating fund expenses, Ron just walked through that, so I won't go into detail there. Likewise, accumulated operating surplus, there's a bit more detail here, showing year over year how our accumulated operating surplus has changed and the various commitments that have come and gone from each year. And we move into the special purpose fund as well. Basically, overall, it's about a $9.4 million total for the special purpose fund. Again, made up of various grants. Our school generated funds are also included in the special purpose fund. You can see there, it's quite a bit of money that actually flows through our schools. We're in the neighborhood of about $1.8 million last year. And on page 8, we have the capital fund. And the capital fund is basically seeing the grants that come in for that, but also the amortization of assets that flow through the fund. At the bottom of page 8, there's also a chart there that basically gives us an idea of what our capital reserve balances were for the year. There's some restricted capital there, some land capital there. And I guess I'll take the opportunity to also mention that this document is in draft form. So one item that will be added to this particular chart at the bottom of page 8 is our other provincial capital funding. And that's the funding that we've received for the Qualicum childcare facility in the neighborhood of about $1.9 million. So that will show up there on the final draft. Finally, the last page, page 9, is a chart there that gives us an idea of who the contributors were to our Bolinas Track project. Again, because this is in draft format, we don't have everything here. We're missing a line there. It's actually the school district's contribution of about $133,000, which if you add that to the $1.5 million there, we hit about $1.6 million, which was our budget for the track. Great, so that's the FSDA. Any questions?
Yes, actually, I can see Jason Howard from Qualicum Beach Elementary. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Sorry if I'm just let me get to the page here if I can multitask. I was curious at the chart on page 4, if you could elaborate just a bit or explain to me the top part where it's like the different projects, Bolinas Secondary, carbon neutral annual facilities. There's the allocated amounts of like 700 and then the actual invested 2024-25. And for the completed projects, I'm just wondering why the differences are so much. Like, for example, annual facility site upgrades, was that like a decision to spend 113 instead of $1 million? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so I should clarify. So when I show the total allocation, that's the total funding that we receive through our COA or our bylaw capital for the particular project. The invested in 2024-25 is only the amount that we spent in that year. We have spent some of these funds in prior years as well. So if you were to look back on our FSDA from prior years, you would see values there as well. For any of these projects here, unless stated otherwise, we do spend the full amount of the allocation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Trustee Austin.
Thanks, Ryan. This is a really interesting document. I guess I have two questions, and my first question is, who is this document designed for? Is it for the ministry? Is it designed for us? Is it designed for the auditors? Who is the end audience for this document?
Ron could probably chime in as well, but I'll say that it's all of the above.
Hey?
Yeah, I think it's, sorry, go ahead, Ron.
No, you finish up your thought.
Yeah, no, I believe that it is a requirement for us to complete this document, but it isn't audited, but the auditors do review it for consistency on information. But it's a great document for the public to better understand financial statements.
The short answer is it's, again, and I think he talked about it earlier, it's really meant as an ancillary to the financial statements. So the audience is the financial statement reader. So that when you're looking at the financial statements, there's a little bit more narrative in terms of the numbers. We know full well that financial statements in terms of their schedules and statements are just numbers. And then through generally accepting practices, general accepted auditing and accounting practices, we include notes. And so there's always notes to financial statements. But again, they're normally more prescriptive. This was intended by the ministry in their, when they were reviewing good governance, good financial practices, the recommendation from the ministry, and it hasn't been necessarily, well, I guess it has. It's now a required document that we file with our financial statements and publish with our financial statements so that the users, the readers, have something, something to sort of share with the information that's being provided.
Well, because yes, I found it a really interesting document because it did give me further information and did explain some of those things. Mm-hmm. So I think from a ministry perspective, it's great as it stands because they understand things like, here's the total allocation, but here's, this is what they spent in that given year. If we're hoping, and I do hope, that our community members, our partner groups, our stakeholders, look at our financial statements, and thus we'll be looking at this discussion and analysis. It might be worthwhile to just put in a few of those extra notes, like to say, this is the total allocation over a number of years. This is what was spent in this given year. Or under special purpose funds, just add another line that says, special for purpose funds include BLT, all the, what actually is funded under special purpose, the actual titles of them, just for those people other than the ministry that do understand, that may not have an understanding of all those little things. Because I do think it's a really worthwhile document, actually, and it does help explain things further. And I think it could be very helpful, especially come budget time. I think it would be very helpful to our participants in the budget discussions to have a bit of this background. So thanks for that. And those are just my suggestions for that. My other question is, a couple of times during this document, we talk about the funding hasn't kept up with inflationary pressures. So what percentage, do you know off the top of your head, what is the percentage that it's not keeping up with? Because, I mean, this is going to go back to the question and the argument about, yes, school districts are always asking for more funding. But if the province isn't actually keeping up with inflation, it's actually not asking for more funding. It's just asking for stability to keep it at a level that's sustainable. So I'm just wondering if you know off the top of your head what that number is.
I know BC ASBO, our provincial association, has done some analysis of it. I might, again, it'll be interesting to, I can't get my hands on it right away, but there was some study on to the district saying how much money isn't unfunded and how can you put a number to it. We talked about the escalating costs of benefits, for example. And some of it is, if you want, self-imposed because provincial bargaining has assigned some values to the benefits. Beyond that, the benefit costs are going up because the users, if you want, the user rates are going up. Likewise, we talk over replacement costs are going up. We can kind of look at it anecdotally, but I'm hard pressed to say by how much, short of saying it's not keeping up. And that's why we tend to have to keep going back to the well in terms of we need to do some reductions for us to be able to support the next year's budget. But I will see if we can find some documentation on some of the pressures that districts are feeling, because I think it does help answer your question in terms of the values that are being identified against that perpetual, it's not keeping up.
Because, you know, some people may call it semantics and I call it, no, it's a fact. When, you know, some people say, well, we just keep asking for more and more funding, but we're not actually asking for more funding. All we're doing is asking to keep up with what we've had in the past. And an actual fact, we're falling behind, which essentially is cutting funding. So, you know, it's all in how you look at it. The province might say, well, you keep asking for more funding and we don't have it. But from my perspective, no, we're not asking for more funding. We just want to maintain what we've had. And that includes, you know, you have to increase what those inflation costs are.
And in fairness to the ministry, they often counter with, we are putting more money into the system. And so they talk about the capital expenditures that are going into the districts. That is aggravating the provincial deficit, as it were, but it is money being put into the system. The food program is new money in the system, but because it, as I've indicated in the past, because it comes with a condition, and I support the condition, which is the food and the nutritional requirements of our students for a good and healthy education. Those monies are targeted. And so oftentimes they will counter with, well, we're putting money in to build schools. We're putting money in to feed students. We're putting money in for this and that and the other thing. But when it comes to the operating fund, there's not a lot of new funding going into it. And that's been the difficult conversation in terms of, we appreciate any new funds, to Superintendent Jory's comments. It's a matter of articulating with them why we don't think it's keeping up, to your point, Julie. Trustee Austin.
Great. Thank you. You good with that, Trustee Austin? Okay. Madam President, Matt Wood.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Trustee Austin, for highlighting those. And I've said this before, this is not my point, by the way, but you made me remind it, is that we spend half the amount of GDP on education as we did 30 years ago. So we take BC GDP, I know we're in deficit, but we're still spending half as what we spent 30 years ago on the education that I had, at least. And so that does make a difference. So I know Ron's discussion about what the province is saying, they've always said they always put more money in, but when you put inflation to it and you realize that you're not spending as much as was spent 30 years ago, that's pretty important, and the system's feeling it. My question, though, is regards to page 7, on the page 7 to 9. I'm just curious, what is the definition of school generated revenues? It's a pretty significant amount, 1.8 million. Is that fees that are collected? I'm just trying to understand what makes up that $1.8 million.
Yeah, it would be. It's basically the money that flows to the school. So it's the fee collection, fundraising, you know, things like even for grad fundraisers, field trips that go through the schools that they collect funds from families for field trips. Just anything that flows to the school that's not you know, explicitly funded or granted by the school district itself.
Okay, so yeah, that's basically parents then and what they're paying. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Young.
Thank you, Trustee Austin. It is always good to have the perspective of somebody who doesn't have a background in bookkeeping and accounting, because when I look at this stuff, of course, from my perspective, it all makes sense and I understand things because of my background in bookkeeping and accounting. But I think your points are really well taken in terms of people from the outside being able to understand what's going on with our statements. To you, Mr. Amos, maybe we need to put those under expenditures in green rather than red. That might work for folks. I don't know. And I think to Mr. Wood's point, you know, if we look at the GDP, I mean, it's been inflation over many, many years. So it's very hard to calculate that. Maybe BC ASBO can do it. But, you know, you mentioned the system 30 years ago. And of course, I went to school before then when education was probably the biggest expenditure that the government made, because we believed in the wake of the space race and Sputnik that we needed to put lots of money into education. I won't go on a rant here, but to Trustee Austin's point, there's inflation, and then there's what's called in accounting unfunded liability. And the government has told us, okay, you got to do stuff on cybersecurity, but there's no fund for that. There's no targeted funding for that amount. And the same with my point about replacement costs. It's not that I think people are taking advantage of and, you know, staying home when they're ill. Absolutely not. It's the fact that the government is not funding that. And it's a part of our operation. It needs to be funded. When it's not properly, I'm ranting, I'm sorry, I'll stop soon. When it's not properly funded, it puts stress on our system. And that's enough out of me. I'm sorry to take up so much time. Oh, and the other thing is, next week when we look at our financial statements, one of the things that cannot be audited is our school generated funds. So we will see a note on that. I always read the notes to the financial statement first, and then go through the statement, then read the notes again. So
actually they are audited.
Yeah, how did you audit them?
The auditors pick 2 schools a year, and they report. They bring a report to the board that Ms. Suchak will show you. But it is part of their audit plan that they do 2 schools a year. And what they're looking at is the cash management. They're looking at the cash controls. They're looking at the balances and the policies that we have that define how much can be held. But yes, to answer your question, they are, to a limited sense, are audited.
Yes, but we'll probably see a note as well, Mr. Amos. We usually do every year. The other document that I think is really, really important for us to look at, and I've kept a copy, is our financial plan, 2024 to 2027. It's not looking good long term. And I don't know, Mr. Amos, if that's going to be updated this year, but it's pretty scary.
It will.
Thank you. We've got all of your questions or comments out there, Trustee Young? Not sure. Okay, so Assistant Secretary Treasurer Ryan, are you going to do a childcare summary of the programs?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do that as well. So hopefully you have the document in front of you from the agenda, and I'll basically describe what you're looking at here and not have any questions at the end. So this document here is basically a summarization of the financial results of last year. So last year being the 24-25 year. I think it's one of our, we did make some big steps forward last year in terms of our accounting, but there's still a lot of work to be done. As I walk through this, you'll see what I mean. So at the top of this document is basically just some enrollment data for the various programs there. So walking across the top, we've got the Seamless program at Arrington, and then the 4 after-school care programs at Arrington, Oceanside, Bowser, and Springwood. The right-hand side there, you'll see ECL special purpose funds, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But what I wanted to also talk about here is the revenues and how that's broken down at the top part of the document. So the ministry funding is basically the operating funding that we receive from the ministry for the various childcare programs that we have. Below that, you're going to see the parent payments and subsidies, 2 different lines there. That is basically what makes up the $200 odd a month per child for the programs. So the subsidies are to subsidize the parents that can't necessarily afford the $200. And so when you look at those 2 lines together, that would make up $200 per child. Below that is sources funding, and that is basically a subsidy, some wages for staffing, I believe, for children that have additional supports required. Seamless funding is a special purpose fund. So that's one of our special purpose funds that we're going to talk about in a moment. On the far right-hand side is the other special purpose fund here, early care and learning, of about $175,000. So those are all the revenues that encompass our childcare programs within the district. So in terms of expenses, we've got our administration officer, that Sheila, part of her wages goes through here. And then of course our responsible adults that we have at each of our programs. We do have one clerical that does all of the clerical work for the programs. And we have the ECE that is funded through the Seamless Special Purpose Fund. And of course, there's benefits associated with all of those salaries. And at the very bottom, we have some supply costs as well through the special purpose funds. So just a few things I wanted to highlight here is that the responsible adult wages that are showing up here may be understated because there is some work to be still done at the district level that involves internal coding between EAs and RAs that do work for the childcare programs. And that's something that we're going to work through this year. You can also see that the processes and procedures that we have in place in terms of coding costs between programs could also, there's some work that needs to be involved there as well, because you can see with Springwood, for example, we're only seeing about $9,900 worth of responsible adults going through there, but we're seeing $49,000 of responsible adults going through Arrington, for example, and that doesn't really tell a clean picture. So we're just working on better allocating costs to the various cost centers or programs within the childcare realm. And of course, we're going to do some analysis this year to see other potential administrative costs there may be that we're not quite picking up yet, and that we'll try to quantify in the 25-26 year. So as I mentioned, there's a couple of special purpose funds here that are funding these programs, particularly the ECL side where there's $175,000 there, the Seamless program with $55,400. If the special purpose funds were to no longer exist, and Ron and Jill can probably tell you a little bit more about that. If they cease to exist, the after-school care programs, which are run through our operating fund, would eventually have to pick up the responsible adults and clerical costs that are flowing through those special purpose funds in the neighborhood of about $63,000. So if those special purpose funds were to dry up, we would actually be seeing a net loss to our school or childcare programs of about $30,000 annually. So that's what I had to say about this. I'm not sure if Ron and Jill have additional things to add.
Seeing no questions or additions. Thank you very much, Ryan. Moving on. So I'm going to just present what our Finance and Operation Committee of the whole annual work plan is. Starting in September, minor capital submissions, audited financial statements, financial statement discussions and analysis, the FSDA, as well as the childcare programs. So that was what was in our meeting for today. In October, we're going to be doing Q1 financial summary, enrollment reports, multi-year financial plan, and Feeding Futures. There will be some information about Feeding Futures in our October meeting. In November, we'll be doing the Statement of Financial Information, the SOFI report. And we'll also be talking about the transportation revenues. There will be no meeting in December. In January, we will be discussing the amended budget, the Q2 financial summary, budget development meeting schedules, reviews, survey reviews, and then the budget development reviews and fee rates. So that will be in January. In February, we will continue on with budget development and preliminary feedback, budget development, micro level themes, three-year enrollment estimations, and lead and water report. In March, there will be no meeting. In April, budget development, refine pressures and priorities, annual budget to board as early as April, the Q3 financial summary, and capital major and minor program announcements. In May, we will be discussing annual facility grants, spending plan, as well as the climate change accountability report will be available then, and our annual budget. In June, we will have the major capital submission, and as well in June, we will have the YE-Q4 financial summary. And I have a question, Ron. What is the Q along with the number, and what is the YE? Year
Y
end?
is year end, yeah.
Okay, got
and
that.
Q is quarter. So
Okay,
in theory,
thank
yeah.
you.
So in theory, the first 3 months ending September 30th will get reported out in October. The next 3 months ending December will get reported out in January. The next 3 months ending in March gets reported out in April. And then obviously we're kind of condensing what we know for a year-end wrap-up for the summary in June as best we can. But yeah,
Great.
This is really a work plan meant to share out how you form your agendas for each month. Some of it is ad hoc related, some of it is necessary items that get either referred to the board for approval or for support. And then in some cases, it's mandated, if you want, to forward on to the ministry because of some legislative requirement.
Great. Thank you very much. Trustee Young.
Yeah, thanks for this. I always like when we have a plan. And of course, plans are flexible. I know that there are certain things here that won't change, but there are a couple of things that I wanted to keep our attention on that's happening at KSS, which is one of my liaison schools. And that's around two projects in particular, Mr. Monroe. One is the multi-court playing surface that we're working on. And the other one is the Healing Garden, which I think we brought to maybe Ed Committee the last time. I know that it's still in the concept stage, but just can we keep an eye on those things and anything else that's going on in the schools that's like a big project that maybe we could approach government and start to lobby around, because like now that the track's done, I can do that.
Great. Thank you so much. Trustee Austin.
Thanks for those comments, Elaine. That was great. Yeah, just basically jumping off of what Elaine said, that these are topics that, yeah, you've planned and have slotted in, but hopefully I'll be asking the chair this. There is still room as things emerge or come up that we can still slot in. So yeah, if people have questions and concerns about things, please send them off to Carol as the chair, and hopefully she'll be able to find a place for them in the finance and ops meeting. My other comment is just, could we, when you, if you reformat this, it's a formatting thing again, can you please set it up as September to August, or no, maybe July to June, or at the very least put the years, because it's very confusing the way it reads right now, starting in January of 2026 and ending in, September of 2025. It's sort of a little bit backwards.
Note taken. I actually just realized that when I was looking at it. I was like, I need to start in September and then go up. So thank you very much for those comments. Seeing no further hands, we are going to address the bus schedules, and that's you, Director of Operations, Phil Monroe.
Yep, thank you again. So what we have, I just want to provide a little context here, because I know the meeting's recorded, and so some of this information I hope has got out there in the past. And I know it's gotten out there in the past because behaviour's shaped or changed in the last couple of years, and we've got registrations for busing to be much earlier than what it was 3 years ago when I joined the district. And so we've been trying to get bus routing applications for kiddos in that May, June, ideally April, May, June, and we over communicate that so that we can do a lot of route planning in the summer. And so we have about typically anywhere between 18 to 1900 students riding the bus network system any given year. And so this year we had about 1,500 of the 1,900, give or take, apply for or register their kiddos for busing in those months, April, May, June. Great work. We got to that place. It allowed us to do a lot of route planning and optimize the bus network for the start of the school year. But unfortunately, in that first week of school, we got 400 bus registrations come in that first week, and we have 2 people processing those high volume of calls and everyone's urgency. And so the bus routes that we'd established in the summer had to change. And so as you could appreciate, if we've got a bus that's at 95% capacity serving an area and we have 10 kids in the first week of school register for that bus, well, now we're having to add another route. And so we're having to work on trying to get that. We've had to add some stops, and then that's made some other schools run a little late. So last week, I think it was on Tuesday night last week, a week ago, we had to change all the routes, and we had to basically go live and change pretty much every route that was in the system. Of the 400 late applicants, we're down to the last 40 here that we're processing. And our staff have been working countless hours, staying back on overtime to try and get all these processed. So we're not leaving any stone unturned. It's just the nature of when registrations come in the first week. It's challenging. We are down to the last 40 that we're processing. Unfortunately, we still have about 150 kiddos riding the bus that we don't have any registration for, any documentation for, and we're working with the schools to help us process that, to work through those 150 riders that are unknown to us. So we're working through that at the moment. It's stabilizing. We have, and as I've mentioned many times, as we've got our route planning software digitized, it's allowed us to optimally reduce student ride time on the buses. And a quick example of that is, for those that are familiar in the Nanusa area, coming out of Morello onto the highway can be quite challenging with the volume of traffic. And so instead of having the buses zigzag across the highway multiple times, the bus routing software has allowed us to have one bus stay on the high side of the highway and one bus to stay on the other side, service those areas, cross the highway as minimal as possible to stop that dwell time of waiting for gaps in the traffic to get the bus out. So it's not only more optimal for the students, it's actually more optimal and safer for the drivers and everyone involved. All information that we have is being communicated through our routing software, and that is MyRide K12. It's a Tyler Technologies app. 1,200 parents have signed up for the app, and that's fantastic. Those that don't want to use the app, we totally get it. You can go to our transportation website on the school district. There's a link on the school district website to our transportation page, and it has the website, and you can get all your information on there. It actually tells you when the bus is coming, where it is. It's got a GPS tracker on the bus. You can see where your bus is. And one last thing to just talk about is the importance of the kiddos swiping on. We've got such a sophisticated technology now, as we know the manifest of the children on the bus, and when a kiddo swipes on the bus, it pops up on an iPad tablet with the student and the student ID. And if they're on the wrong bus, the bus driver can say, "You're actually on the wrong bus. You're actually on that bus over there." And so we've got to a place with a little more sophistication for the drivers and for people getting on the right bus. Bear with us. First couple of weeks of school are always bumpy. It's getting less bumpy. And the more we can get, 95% of registrations to be done before the summer, then we would have these kinks ironed out much quicker.
Great. Trustee Young.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mr. Monroe. I just wanted to make sure that information got out to everybody, because it was quite a shock, I'm sure, to everybody. And thanks to the Transportation Department for updating. And also, I noticed that you've got information right on the website, which is very helpful to people. I'm hoping it will all straighten out soon. Thanks a lot.
No problem. I appreciate you bringing it up, because it's an opportune time to talk about it. And I know our transportation manager, Brant Prunkel, has even gone into all the school websites and got information specific to the schools, tailored to those school websites. So we're doing our best to over communicate.
Hey, great. Jason.
Hi there. Sorry, it's a noisy transportation hub I'm in right now, but I'll try and make this quick. For the buses, we were hearing a lot of feedback through District PAC that parents are having troubles getting set up on the app. I think they're enjoying it once they're in there, and I'm not sure the details. We'll try to communicate that, but also, and perhaps more importantly, the PEN number, as I understand it, the unique identifier that students have. Parents aren't used to using that number or even know it exists or where to find it, and that's been a major difficulty apparently for signing up with the app. And I'm just wondering if maybe there's some communicating or something we could do, or that students on buses get directly communicated. This is your PEN number. This is what you need to sign up. This is where you find it. Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Great questions. We've got an FAQ that's posted on the website, and that pretty much answers any of those questions that people have about signing in and all those things. The unique student identification number, you're right, it isn't a number that's commonly used. I would just reach out to the school. Just anyone that's got questions about that, just reach out to the school. The school clerical are being informed of all this stuff. They're very much up to date with what the number associated with it is. Once you've got it in there, you're in there, and that's it. You never have to touch that number again. But I agree, the app is it's so real time and informative. And as we go into the weather in the winter, it's going to be a great way for people to not have to wait on the side of the road in the cold. If there are delays, we'll keep it real time. So reach out to the school for the identification number, and there's a great FAQ on the website that answers pretty much every question.
That's great. That answer your question there, Jason? Thank you very much for that. It's good for us to know. It's good for us to know what the parents are dealing with on the outside. Trustee Kurland.
Yeah, Phil, excuse me. Phil, could you hang around after the meeting? I just want to ask you a question.
Yeah, no problem. That's fine.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So Mr. Monroe, we are going to talk about the major capital submissions for 2026, 2027.
Minor capital.
Minor, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. No problem. I am going to quickly share my screen and taking what some of the members of this group said to me when we spoke about the AFG recently. I think it was Matt had mentioned that the having it outlined in an Excel table rather than the ministry website link is much more digestible, and I do agree. So I've got this in a digestible table, and we will go from there. So this, can see my screen there, Trustee Kellogg?
Yep, I sure can.
Okay, perfect. I've just got listed on the side, the left-hand column there, the programs and sort of listed out the acronyms. Trustee Austin there had mentioned in the past, as people don't know what these acronyms are. And so just so people are aware and get familiar with what the envelopes of money that we get and what they're tied to. So School Enhancement Program, the SEP, I've never got more than $1 million. Sometimes we get 600,000, sometimes we get $1 million, and it depends. But we've got a roofing project. Errington and Arrowview just celebrated their 25-year anniversary. And with 25 years comes 25 years of assets that are aging. And so the roof and the gutter system are no exception. So we've got Errington this year. Next year, we'd like to get to Arrowview. That would be soffits, fascias, and everything that entails the roof system there. So we've got around $1 million that is submitted. We're getting submitted for that. CNCP, in the years that I've been with the district, I've never really got more than 400 to 450,000. I kind of know where my limits are before my hand gets slapped on asking. And so these are the priorities for us going into next year is from a CNCP point of view. The first one we've got is Errington KSS, Nanoose and Qualicum Beach Elementary. We want to get some variable frequency drives installed on the air handler motors. Right now, when the HVAC system comes on at many of the sites, to get the temperature up to a certain point, it blasts 100%, raises the energy. So we get a surge of electricity as we start to blast air in. And with a variable frequency drive, we can slowly just get it. If we only need a little bit of air, we'll just push a little bit of air in. We'll just, some of the modeling from the engineers that we've been working with is we could save 50% energy costs by installing variable frequency drives. So the carbon neutral requests are born out of a study that Prism's done for us, Prism Engineering, for some energy modeling. So we think we might be able to reduce energy costs by 50% by doing that work on those 4 sites. The other CNCP, 220,000, Errington, Arrowview, Nanoose, and Qualicum Beach L. Similar thing, variable frequency drives, but that would be on the heating pump loops. The hot water goes around in a big loop within the building. And so we would like to have some variable frequency drives on that infrastructure. Playground equipment program, which is the PEP funding. I'm led to believe that that's going to happen every 2 years, not every year. I'm going to put a request in nonetheless. maybe we'll get it. If we don't, it'll go on to the following year, but it's 200,000 is typically the envelope, and we're going to put it in for a replacement of a 22-year-old playground at the back of Errington. And then the food infrastructure program, got $110,000 ask in there for some equipment for Bowser, and then there's some work at the back of the Bolinas kitchen that we need to do to make it actually close it off from some office space. And so that's the requests. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and take any questions if anyone's got any.
Trustee Austin.
Thanks, Phil. So that's for 26-27 school year. So not this school year, that would be the following school year. Is that right? And then if a lot of those submissions were accepted, a lot of that work wouldn't happen then, I presume, until the summer of 2027. Is that right? Or
no, so the capital year starts April 1st, 2026, and then goes through till March 30 of 2027. So this work, if we get these submissions, this will come through in April of 2026 and carry into the year of 2027. So right now we're in the 25-26 capital year.
Okay, so some of that work, if it was accepted, some of that work might be able to be done next summer.
Yeah, all of this work that's on here would be primarily done next summer. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
So we've got CUPE Vice President Tom Slocum.
Yeah, just a personal question. What's the roof going to be on Errington? Is it going to be metal or continuation of that Duroid asphalt shingle?
It'll be a Duroid asphalt shingle. The metal, if we did metal, we'd have to phase it over 2 years because it would be 1.8 million thereabouts. But what I am led to believe from some of the consultants is the new Duroids actually have zinc incorporated in them, and so we won't get the moss build up in the same fashion that we do on the older Duroids. So, yeah, good question though.
Great. Thank you. Oh, Trustee Young.
Okay, so now I've got a question from the Strata perspective. Are you saying that the new whatever you just called it, would have a longer lifespan because the zinc's included?
It would stop the volume of moss building up if we get the top of the line Duroids that are out there. And a good example of this is if anyone's out at Errington, we did a patch repair at Errington. If you're looking at it from the front, if you look towards the front, you look on the right-hand side, you'll see a circle with no moss on it, and the rest of the roof's covered in moss. And that is the new Duroids, which have zinc incorporated in them. And it doesn't eliminate moss completely, but it certainly slows down the moss growth in those really wooded areas. So with any product, you get cheap, medium, better. If you're going in the higher range of quality of the Duroid, you typically get some of that zinc built into it these days.
Great. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our meeting. Our next meeting is planned for October 21st, 2025 at 10:30, and we will be recording it. So I want to thank everybody that joined us today, and seeing no further questions, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Everybody have a lovely lunch, and we'll see you in October.